And now, you guys, I have on a very special guest in Robbie from Arsenal Fan TV.
The game at Stamford Bridge, 2-2, we were down to 10 men, fought back. So, you've got to be, as an Arsenal fan, you've got to be quite optimistic. We've got a great pedigree in the FA Cup as well. We've won it more times than any other team. So, taking all those factors into account, of course, we've got to remember Baku last year where you guys absolutely destroyed us.
Yeah.
But taking into account, it's a different manager as well. I do feel quite confident that we can get a result, but I know it's going to be a difficult game.
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously with us, we'll take that confidence from the previous final in Baku. And I do feel like with how our season ended, there were a few negatives, but mostly it was positive. And I think that now a lot of these guys, they'll play with something to prove. I'm looking at Olivier Giroud. He came out today knowing that, listen, I know that Werner's sign is like the number one basically, but that doesn't mean I'm going to just sit down and do absolutely nothing. I'm going to make things as absolutely half a Lampard as possible. And you can just imagine that in a game like, against Arsenal in the final on Saturday, Giroud's going to be ready. Giroud's going to be up for it. So I guess I want to ask you, how do you feel about Olivier Giroud? How do Arsenal fans feel about him since he's signed for us? And is he someone that you're definitely respecting and keeping a watchful eye out for on the game on Saturday?
Yeah, of course. I think every Arsenal fan's very wary of Giroud because, obviously we were the team that bought him in the first place, when nobody knew who he was, developed him into a great player, World Cup winner. And we know what his skills are. He's very underrated for his skills. He's a very skillful player, who can, score some good goals. Maybe not the best finisher in the world, not clinical, but he has other attributes that make him a very dangerous player. He's brilliant at holding the ball up. He's brilliant in and around the box if you can get the ball into him, little flicks and little, he's really good at that. He's a top class player. And I think, he will be a handful for our defenders. We're very, very wary of Giroud, and he's a very motivated guy. And also, he's got a great record in the FA Cup. Being at Arsenal, he always turned up for us when he was in the FA Cup. So I think, we're going to be very, very wary of Giroud. It was a bit of a shame. When he left, actually, it was a bit of a shame, but I think everyone could understand it because he didn't want to be a sort of play second or even third fiddle, which he would have probably played because, remember we had Aubameyang we bought in and Lacazette. So he's probably looking at it and said, I'm not going to get a lot of game time here.
Yeah.
So I've always personally understood why he went. And then, Chelsea came in. You can't turn that down. He's still in London. He's been lived in London for a long time. So, we'll be giving Giroud his full respect. He's had a good season. I was surprised earlier on in the season when he wasn't getting more game time. But,
I get it. I think maybe that with Tammy's form at the start was really good. I think Tammy was definitely affected by injury as the season's gone on. I think obviously he's young. He's 21, 22 years old. So it's going to be hard for him to maintain that form throughout. But, from what I was hearing about Giroud and Tammy's relationship, it does sound pretty good. I didn't realize that Giroud is really a devout Christian in that sense. So when Tammy was facing a lot of the the racism from parts of our fan base, you know how it is. He was actually sending Bible passages telling Tammy, obviously keep your head up and still remain hopeful. So I think that Giroud is a really good leader. I didn't even realize he had that leadership qualities about him.
No, I like Giroud. I've met, when he was at Arsenal, I met him a couple of times, and he was a really nice guy. And as I said, I don't think he's one of them players that have left Arsenal, gone to a rival, and fans hate him. I think the fans still respect him, even though there were a lot of fans really annoyed with him last year when he was sort of doing that celebration after you guys beat us in Baku. But then to me, I just look on it and say, listen, man, the guy's a professional. I don't know, I look on it a bit differently.
Of course, I agree with you. The
guy's a professional footballer. You're leaving Arsenal. You're in your 30s, right? And you got a chance to go and play for Chelsea. You'd be dumb to turn that down. That's how I look on it. So, fair play to him. I give him all his respect for that. And but we just got to make sure that we look after him, because he's a very dangerous player.
And I think I think this moves things on nicely to maybe some of the main weaknesses with both our teams right now. Now, of course, Giroud is going to be a handful for your defense, but do you feel confident that the defense could maybe maintain that solidity against us on Saturday? Like, how are you feeling right now?
Do you know what, right? Our defense is very similar to your defense.
Not the same, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, very similar in that they're shaky. So Arsenal's, you can have an Arsenal defence that plays like they did against Villa, or various other teams that we've seen this season where it's been very shaky, or you can have an Arsenal defence that play like they did against Manchester City, where they were brilliant. You know what I mean? Manchester City had one shot on target in that semi-final, right? You can have an Arsenal defence that played against, Liverpool, and got that win. You know what I mean? So on any given day, they can defend very well. But then on any given day, they can be poor as well. That's why we are where we are, because our defensive side of our game is so inconsistent. You just don't know. But the one thing I would say is that Arteta has really had this team up for these big games. And his tactics have been very good in these big games as well. So even since the lockdown, when I look at it and analyse it, the losses that we had the loss to the first game against Man City. Yes, that was a David Luiz horror show.
You know what? Even when it comes to Luiz, I like, people on my channel know that I really like David Luiz, and I kind of was a bit sympathetic in that game, because for me, it felt like he wasn't expecting to play. Came on, right at the start of the second half, and
that is true.
I mean?
That is true, but it doesn't matter. The mistakes were horrific. He's been sent off too many times this season. He's given away too many penalties. But then you can have him like in the semi-final against Man City. He's like another David Luiz.
That's
brilliant.
What I mean. He
defended well. He was combative. He was brilliant in the air. His passing was brilliant. So that's the problem with him. He's inconsistent, and we got a lot of defenders that are inconsistent. But against some of the bigger teams, since the lockdown, we played very well. We played very well against Liverpool, played very well against City. We beat Sheffield United away, very tough game. When you go there, we did very well against them. We did well against Leicester. Was doing well against Tottenham until, Kolasinac decides to commit a howler. You know what I mean? So I've noticed that against the really big teams, we've been really up for those games. So I expect us to be really up for this as well. I remember when Arteta, when we went to Stamford Bridge and we only had 10 men, that was a great recovery by Arsenal. They showed a lot of heart and a lot of fight. And I expect that's the one thing that we've seen since Arteta's taken over, which a lot of Arsenal fans are really infused about, is that he doesn't suffer fools gladly. Mm-hmm. You've got to perform out there, or you're not playing. You see, Ozil has not played 1 minute since the lockdown. He's not even been on the bench. None of the previous.
It's no surprise to me. Like Ozil, he's never been a guy that presses. He doesn't press. No. He doesn't work hard in modern day football. The minute one player isn't working hard in your team, it can ruin everything for everyone.
But the other managers have still tried to get him into the team somehow. Or what? This guy, Arteta's just said, "You ain't playing. You don't suit what I'm trying to do. I don't care if you're on our highest earner on £350,000 a week. You're not playing." Guendouzi, after that game against Brighton, the second game, again, he's been considered one of our best midfielders. He goes, "You're not playing either." So he's not been messing around, and I think that the team are going to be very up for this game. You expect a very well motivated Arsenal. You've got two managers in Lampard and Arteta. This is big for both of them. That's how I look. This is a major thing. It could be lift off for both of their careers. You're at a very high profile job. You're a very young manager, and you win a FA Cup. That's huge. So as your first ever trophy as well. So I expect a very pumped up, motivated, and focused Arsenal. I don't expect to see the type of Arsenal we saw in Baku last year, where they weren't. But this time, I think they will be. I think they'll be up for this. Yeah,
I think so too. I think it's going to be a lot tighter in that game. I think, obviously, it being a London derby too, cup final is going to be momentous. And my question for you is, who do you think would be the biggest winner between Arteta or Lampard, deciding on whoever wins the game on Saturday?
Well, as I said, I think it's huge for both of them because for Lampard, I know he got into the top four.
Yeah, so he's kind of completed his mission for this season, basically.
Yeah, he sort of completed his mission, but you don't get trophies for the top four. I can tell you all about that as an Arsenal fan. I mean, over the years, it does make me laugh that everybody now is desperate to get in the top four, and they used to banter us for that, right? But you know what I mean? Trophies are different. When you lift up a trophy, you've got something tangible that's, especially when it's your first one. You know what I mean? If it's other managers where they've won loads of trophies and stuff like that, it's different. But you as a manager, a young guy, you're just coming to turn around and you've got the FA Cup on your CV. You started your career well. And I think it's massive for both of them. I really do think it's bigger for Arteta. The reason being is Arsenal been an absolute shambles this year, and he's come in, he's had to take over an absolute mess. Even though I know Lampard had the transfer ban and stuff like that, but I still think he had a much better team he was taking over. He's not had as many problems in the background. Arteta's had to come in, manage the Ozil situation, manage like loads of injuries as well. He's really, and then, we've had 3 managers this season. Arteta's the 3rd. And not only that, let's remember that he had the coronavirus as well.
Yeah.
He was the first sort of high-profile football guy to get it, which led to the whole season stopping. He's recovered from that and come back. It would be great for him if he could win it. He'd be able to look back and say, wow, after the year I've had, leaving Manchester City, coming to Arsenal, it's been a mess, sorting it out, getting things back on track, and then getting the coronavirus.
It's definitely been
so if he could lift up an FA Cup at the end of it, it'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think for me, maybe Lampard could be the bigger winner, because I think right now, he's worked very hard this season, implemented all the tactics, the style, the system. I think getting that trophy, man, as you said, is that tangible thing that tells all the players and everyone in the club, everything we're working towards is being done for a reason, because it brings success. And as you guys can see for yourself, you've got your first trophy. So I do think that in particular with some of the guys we're looking to sign this window, because as for being a Chelsea fan, it does feel a bit surreal that this window in particular is like so ambitious. We are targeting so many big players that in previous seasons were a complete fantasy. Like, I'm remembering Conte looking at your Biabianis and looking at your Peter Crouches and all this nonsense, and like 2 years later we're looking at Kai Havertz, one of the best young players in the world right now. So it feels like things are on the rise.
We're jealous over it because we're looking at. I think what's helped Chelsea indirectly is the transfer ban.
Yes,
it helped you guys 2 ways. Number one, you realise that something that I think probably a lot of your fans and a lot of other people realised for a while, that Chelsea have got an unbelievable academy with some great young players, but they never get a chance to play. You had to play them, and some of them have really, Mount and Reece James and Tammy Abrahams, and they've had their chance and they've done really well. So that's the first bonus for you guys. And then the fact that now, when everybody else is sort of really struggling with this pandemic, you've had like almost 2 windows, you haven't bought anybody, so you can now go and splash a bit. Whereas I think a lot of other teams like us got to be very careful with the way we spend, because we outlaid quite a lot of money last season, Nicolas Pepe and people like that, and now obviously with the coronavirus thing, we didn't get into the top 4 as well. Our spending is really curtailed. So we're going to have to spend smart. I mean, Arteta's already said that. So maybe look for that player that's just slightly under the radar that can become that.
I think that's the best strategy, like to keep things real. Like when I was doing my Premier League predictions before the season started, I looked at the business that Arsenal did. You guys signed Pepe for 70 million, and I just knew that you guys were going to struggle this season, because throughout my head I was thinking, how are you going to incorporate this attack of Lacazette, Aubameyang and Pepe, who've cost you like hundreds of millions for just those 3 players alone? There's no tactical setup to get the best out of all of them. There's not a proper midfield to get the best out of them, to like make up for that lack of defensive work rate too. And of course, the defense ain't perfect just yet. So it does feel like with Arteta coming to your club, it seems like he's starting to turn to the academy a bit more now. Of course, seeing Saka, playing in the team, and of course, the guy has some big potential, putting in some big performances, and I think showing that mentality that he's not phased to play at this level. He's not phased to affect the game. Yeah,
it's been excellent, and listen. Going forward this season, we've been all right. We've got an attack that is dangerous. I mean, you mentioned Giroud earlier. But we've got Aubameyang, who's been brilliant. I mean, again, just missed out on the Golden Boot, won it last season. Fastest Arsenal player to 50 goals in an average team.
Yeah.
It's been superb. Lacazette is on form at the moment. Since the lockdown, he's come back. He's had a bit of an indifferent season. But I've got to say, this year, since the turn of this year, he's been playing well. And he will be very dangerous. And again, he's a guy very similar to Giroud, holds the ball up very, very well. Maybe not as good nowhere near as good in the air.
Yeah.
But its hold up and link up play is excellent. And Pepe is a very dangerous player who's now getting better and better.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it's just the problem we've had all season has been defence, and we don't have that attacking midfielder because obviously Özil's been out. He's not played, and he doesn't really figure no more. And we just lack that bit of creativity to get the ball up to those guys. I think if we can solve that next season, that'd be great. But I think Arteta's found a system that works for him at the moment with the team he's got, which is he's been playing against those big teams, that system of three at the back. And I think he'll do that against Chelsea with two wing backs there to try and stop Willian, and if he plays that is, and stop
Pulisic in that too. Yeah.
Right. And then on the counter attack, Arsenal are a very dangerous team. You give Aubameyang, a chance, he'll take it. So it's a very even game. I mean, I like the way the way Lampard's had Chelsea playing. You're a bit more free flowing than we are. But as I said, I just think that the system that we're playing at the moment really suits us. And there are some good players in that Arsenal team. Kieran Tierney, very good player. I think you're going to see a lot more of him next season. He's been very, very, had a lot of injuries this season, but since he's come back, very influential player.
I mean, he's a player that we actually even looked at too before we. He's a very good player. And then there's players like Danny Ceballos, who's on form at the moment as well. Granit Xhaka. Right, he's really stepped up even more now. Yeah,
I think Arteta's found his true role in that team. And he's actually becoming the leader of the team, which is you wouldn't have thought that after what happened with him earlier on in the season. Yeah. So the team is. I don't think that's the system going forward that Arteta wants to play, but at the moment that system's what he has been playing, and it's been working for him. And I fully expect him to stick with that system against Chelsea, because when I look at Chelsea, a lot of the danger comes down the flanks.
Yeah. So we're a team that focus the ball out wide. So it gets me thinking. Now that what makes things even more interesting now is that both managers basically have an entire week to really work on game plans, work on tactics. Because I think that's one aspect that's constantly forgotten about during this Corona period is that. Most times the teams are traveling nearly every single day. There's no time to even work on stuff. It's just recovery and travel every single time. So maybe Lampard could be working on using that back three himself to counter that. And I think that would be quite interesting to see because we have done that a few times this season. But just so we can wrap up with the video, who are the three key players that you feel that could pose us the biggest problems for that game on Saturday?
Well, obviously Aubameyang definitely is going to be Aubameyang and Lacazette. I think up front are going to be a major threat. And I just got a funny feeling for David Luiz. I mean, he was so poor when he played against Chelsea. I think he's going to know that he owes Arsenal a performance. You know what I mean? Against Chelsea in the semi-final against Manchester City, he was unreal. He really was, and I think Chelsea fans know it. What we've seen. That he can be unreal one week and then unreal the other way.
You know what's even funny, Robbie? If I was to be super fair on David Luiz, ever since he came back the second time, there were barely any bad performances. I can count on my hands over the past 2-3 seasons performances that were bad. So I think he's always been underrated for me.
I'm not going to say that here. Because they've been shocking performances.
Yeah.
They've been also very good ones, as I said, against Liverpool, against City. You know what I mean? So
big games.
He owes a performance against Chelsea, and just in the same way, I'm thinking to myself, Giroud's going to be really pumped because he's playing against his old team. I think it's going to be a similar thing for David Luiz. So it wouldn't surprise me if Luiz put in a really good performance against Chelsea, and I think he's going to be a player that could pose a danger to you guys.
Yeah, I think they're the three players I'd expect to. I think for us, I'm looking at Pulisic, of course. I'm actually looking at Willian because Willian has been very underrated by
He's good.
He's a good player. He's a very good.
There's a lot of debate with us over this because obviously we keep getting linked to him.
I mean, there's a big possibility that he could be signing for you guys for next season. I mean, I'd feel good. I'm telling you, like, this is what I mean. Willian's the type of player where you'll never find like a compilation video that has like banging skills and long shots that scored left, every single week, every single day. It's not like that, but he's one of those guys that like improves how you play. Like he's good on the ball. Yeah,
he's quality. He's quality. It's just that I'm like, yo, man, how many more of these Chelsea players we're gonna take? You know what I mean? He is quality, but he's old, right? And I'm
Willian's
like,
not an old player though. He's different because he's super fit. Like Willian looks like he's 26, 27, and I think that's why he plays week in, week out.
It's a bit, you know what? That's very similar to like the debates we've been having over Aubameyang, and then people was like, "Oh, he's 31." I'm like, "Yo, this guy plays like he's 25."
That's what I'm saying. People keep forgetting like it's modern day football. Exactly.
He's back, and he's probably one of the fittest guys in the club. So
of course, like these days with like modern science in the game, players don't lose their fitness like they look at Ronaldo. He's a prime example. The guy is 36 soon. He looks like he's 25.
Yeah, you look at I always say look at Messi. He's 32, I think, as well.
Yeah.
The best goal scorer in Europe at the moment, Lewandowski, is 32 as well.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are all in their 30. Aguero's 30. You know what I mean? You're not going to tell me you ain't going to have none of those players.
Yeah, and exactly. Like everyone keeps saying, you don't look at players who are like 28. Like it doesn't make sense to me. Why would you
Vardy over here.
That's what I mean. Vardy as well.
Two best scorers of
exactly.
They're over 30.
Exactly. So, yeah. It's confusing because I feel like it's like that type of data discussion where it's like commentators mention it on TV once and everyone just believes it without even thinking about it. I mean, it's modern day football. These guys look after themselves like ridiculously well, and for me, I think if Willian's side for you guys, he'd be that great like balance for your squads, that experience for the younger players.
You're probably right, but it's just I think it's because
it's not exciting. I think
it's coming from you lot. You know what I mean? We're not
I definitely feel you, man. But to wrap up the video, what are your score predictions for the final?
I'm going 2-1 to Arsenal. I think it'll be a tight game.
Extra time?
We got possibly extra time, but we've got great pedigree in this competition, and we could actually end up with a season with a bit of silverware in a season where we didn't think we'd get nowhere near it. And so I think, I think we can, the last time we won the FA Cup, we beat City in the semi-final, you guys in the final. I remember at that time you were champions.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing to fear for Arsenal. There's nothing to fear for Arsenal, you know what I mean? We know that, I know they're going to go out there and respect Chelsea, right? But we can beat Chelsea, and 2-1.
You know what? I think the game is going to be tight as well. It's one of them weird ones because I think both teams have players that could make that individual mistake that could just turn the game just like that and ruin like all the efforts of other people in the team. So in that sense, I do see Arsenal as the underdog, so that could give them that advantage, showing that there's no pressure behind them to really have to do, to do anything. So I think it's going to be a tight game. Of course, I've got to back my team. I've been backing my team this whole season. I said we'd get top 4 when everyone said we were going to get 8th and 10th before the season started. I think we're going to win it. So I'm going to be going for 3-1 to us because I think that I feel it's going to be one of them games where it's going to be like the final goal is going to actually seal it. So I think 3-1 could be the scoreline. But Robbie, man, thank you for coming on. Been a pleasure speaking football with you. And you guys, of course, if you want to hear some more thoughts and opinions on the game, there is going to be a predicted lineup video and preview coming out tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. I'm EFC. This is Blue Lions TV. I'll catch you, man, later with some more videos.